So I want to introduce you all, if you all do not know, Tracy Duke Taylor and her daughter, Carrie. The little miracle daughter, the miracle daughter. And so I asked Tracy some time ago if she would come and give her testimony. And I've told them I've been bragging about you for a long time now. I have, because you're such a great woman of faith. You are.
Oh, thank you.
You are, Tracy. I've known Tracy since she was 16 or 17. She was originally from a holiness type church, you know, and so she wore long skirts and they didn't cut their hair and all that, no lipstick or anything. And so she started coming here. Well, her mother and dad heard Norman, really, and that's what changed everything. And so, and then they started bringing their children. She was a really young girl then. She's not that old now, but you know, she's a little bit older now. So anyway, you know, pretty soon she started wearing pants, and then she'd come and she felt condemned. It's a big transition to move from all that kind of law. You know, it's hard. It's not easy. I'm thinking of, you know, even from the Old Testament, the Jews coming from the Old Testament that are Christians, how hard it is. It's a paradigm shift, total change of consciousness, coming from law, you know, and then coming into, you know, the new covenant. So, and that's really kind of the way it is, you know, from anybody that's been under that kind of legalism as Christians, even, you know, and you have to unlearn a lot, I guess. So, and I always tell the story about her mother and I used to teach together. We used to travel. We'd go places together and we taught together. And her mother, they had 15 children. You're which one are you?
I'm number 10.
10, number 10. She had 15 children. You never would have, if you'd met her, you'd never thought she'd have 15 children. Honestly, I mean, the mother looks fabulous. And you think, what? Then she got her master's degree after her husband died. And so she had to raise all these kids. So anyway, she got free though. She got free. And not only free, she is a great, great woman of faith. And she wants to tell her story. I want everybody to hear it. And actually, I want her to come and we're going to make an actual video. We've done it before, but we want everybody to hear, because these are great, great faith people. This is one thing. When the problem came, and she'll tell you all about it, she said, I don't want anybody telling me how to have faith. I don't want to have any recordings to listen to. She says, I have to hear from God. I have to hear from God. No. And that was her mother as well, was exactly the same. So I'm going to turn this around. All right, now I can't tell when you're now.
Okay, I think it's too close.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can move this.
Okay.
Tell me how to move this.
Right there.
Right here?
A little higher. Pull back.
Yeah.
There you go. Looks good.
Okay. All right, introduce yourself, Tracy.
Okay, I'm Tracy Taylor, as she said earlier, and this is my daughter, my youngest child, Carrie. I guess if I had to tell the story again, when I initially told it, I just told of her involvement in faith. And now I realize I need to go all the way back because there's a thread now that I see. And if I started out now, I would start it out with my son, Will. He was my first, and all my siblings had healthy kids. And he was having asthma attacks, and I was going into the hospital all the time. This was at a time period when asthma was not as common as it is now. So for me, it was like, okay, God, why is my child sick? And I think one time we went to the emergency room and we had to stay in the hospital, but he sounded like a robot. Everything was in there. And you know, like when people smoke and there's an electronic kind of sound.
Mhm.
So he was sounding that way. So I was really kind of struggling. And so I always say God broke me into faith.
Broke me into faith.
And so he broke me into trust. It was not anything I read, anything I could conjure up, nothing that had to do with me at all. Zip, nada, at all. And so from there, I began to see, because I remember when he was born, he was really small. And the doctor told me he's going to be a runt all his life. And I remember instantly my spirit said, no, he's not. He's 6'1". So he's far from a runt. But also that kind of just, it set something about God when he started healing him, because they had told me that he'd always be asthmatic. He's done sports. He's not really taken a little inhaler since he was like 3. He's done sports. He's been active. In fact, I have to remind him that he has asthma. I don't even know if I do it anymore because he hasn't had any symptoms. But normally when you're as severe as he was, that's it for life. So that's the first weaving of the thread of the journey. Okay, so then she comes along. And when she's born, she has everything wrong. There's absolutely, they told me she couldn't hear. They ran tests on her several times. She's not passed a single hearing test. The list was just a hole in her heart. In fact, 2 holes in her heart. The list was enormous. Actually, there was nothing more right, to the point that I was like, okay, God, I don't know what to do, but if you let her live, I can love her. I don't have any medical degrees. I don't have any knowledge, but I can at least love her. And so then the journey started being where all of a sudden God started moving and showing himself. So I've got little cheat sheets because it's been a while. She was like on 12 to 13 different medications. And they also diagnosed her with cystic fibrosis. They don't live very long. I think 11, 12. And so when they tested her, one would be negative. Then the next would be positive. Then the next would be negative. Then the next would be positive. Then the next would be negative. And it would never be the same, so that she would get and I was telling Sylvia, it was like she was shedding all these diagnoses. As soon as they would try to get them like a winter coat, she was like taking them off. And it was like God was saying, she's not going to wear whatever they say. And so I'm trying to see if I could keep it in order. So when I knew she could hear, I have a middle son. I have 3 kids. And the middle son used to hang on me like I was a jungle gym. And at the time it was like I'm washing dishes and here he is. And, at the time I was a young parent, so I didn't really pay any attention that he was using my legs and hanging on my legs and hanging on my stomach. But when they told me she couldn't hear, all these tests, how am I to know she can't or can? The test says she won't ever. And so I look up one day and we're holding her because she's still in the ICU. And so he comes in and he's playing on the doorknob. Well, she's killing herself to look at him. And I'm like, oh my God, she's hearing him. And so from that point on, I knew she could hear, no matter what the test said, because she heard him. She didn't respond to any sounds. You could drop something. Her dad talked, I talked, no response. But this little bitty 2-year-old came in and she's just like she was literally unresponsive, but she was doing her head backwards, killing herself trying to find where he was. And I was like, you know what? He sat right there hanging on me all the time and she knows his voice.
Wow.
So she's looking for him.
Wow.
And so to me, that was God's way of saying she can hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why she's not registering. So of course today she passes all the hearing tests just fine. But back then, the other thing, I'm trying to see if I could keep, it really was a lot. When I took her at 4 months, the therapist said, we spent an hour talking and we were like, she is never going to be anything. She's not even going to be able to push herself in a wheelchair. She is so hypertonic. She was like a chicken, you know, like when you take them loose, they spring back. And so she was so tight that they were like, she will never be able to even operate a wheelchair. And I just remember thinking, I just really didn't fight anything they said. It was like, you know, God, she's yours. So then to this day, I still don't know where the idea came from. I would take and lean her over my arm and I would move each leg because I was like, she's a toddler. How do you tell a toddler instructions? How do you tell a toddler you want them to walk?
Right.
There's nothing you can say. So I'm like, but her brain needs to know what I'm looking for. So I would bend her over my arm and I would just move each leg. And all the doctors were like, when I would say, well, one day she'll walk, they all looked at me like, you poor pitiful thing. And so I would take her every single day because she had a walker issue to her, but she would scream at the sight of the walker. And I was like, girlfriend, you are going to do. And so I would just take her legs and I would move them. And I did this for several months, but when I think back on it, it's insanity. I mean, like, what made me even, to this day, it's like, that is nuts that you moved her legs for like months. And there was no outward sign that it was any improvements, nothing showing that this was working. I don't know what possessed me to keep doing it anyway. And when I was younger, I ran track. And I just remember we went to therapy, I think twice a week. And I remember my track coach would never accept 2 hours worth of running. And, you know, I ran in high school. He's like, this would be like a joke to him. So when I'm working with her, I take her every single day. Well, one day I looked up and I was sitting on the floor and she walked across the floor. She gave no signs whatsoever that she was going to ever walk. In fact, she still wasn't really standing. We had taken her to the orthopedic doctor. And that's when he kind of looked at me like, when I told him she would walk one day, he was the one that kind of looked at me like, okay, I'll just let her live in her delusion. And so she was on a playpen, and I never will forget it. I was sitting on the floor watching television, and all of a sudden this toddler just starts walking across the floor. And I remember when I took her back to the same orthopedic doctor, he just kept saying, I don't believe she's walking. I don't believe she's walking. I don't believe this baby's walking. And of course, people that do physical therapy, they can look and see that they can see there's a slight bend in her knee. But you got to remember, I had nobody to train me. All I had was she won't ever, she won't ever, she won't ever, she won't ever. And now they have machines all over the place that walk people for them. But when she was born, there was none. And I guess I'm trying to make sure I get it all in order.
Tracy, did you say this one time? You said somewhere in your brain you know how to walk.
Yeah,
in the name of Jesus.
Mhm.
Okay, say that.
When she was little, I used to talk to her brain. And I would tell her brain that her brain knew how to walk. And I would talk to her brain about being healed, because I thought, well, you know what, we'll bypass all understanding. I'll just speak to the spirit of who she is.
Yeah.
And I would speak to her brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next thread is her father got sick. And he kept Legionnaires at his job. So he had a complete system shut down, everything, every single organ shut down. And they say you seldomly survive that. Well, when I went in again, I went in with, okay, I don't expect him to live, but I could give him a comfortable life. He may not live 3 months, but I can show him, the love of God for the brief time he's here. So he's laying there and they're talking to me about letting him die and pulling the little, putting a feeding tube or pulling it. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, that's in between him and God. I'm not making that decision. So basically, he would talk to only me. they never heard him talk because he would never talk. And when they did finally get him to talk, the only thing he could remember was my name, my birthday, and everything about me, but nothing about himself, his kids, his family. But he could tell you. But my sister said, well, Tracy, you were the one that promised him you would be there. Because when I would come in the room, the ventilator would go off. He's unconscious, but it would go beep, beep, beep if I said one word. And one day I called my sister and I said, am I causing him distress? She says, no. You're the one that promised him that you'd be there. So he's relating to you. And so I arranged with my family where somebody would stay with him around the clock. So we kind of read to him. And I did read him The Purpose Driven Life, chapter 2, which says your life has a purpose. And I never will forget, one day I read it and I opened to read it. He went beep, beep, beep. And I was like, what's going on? And then I started again and go beep, beep, beep. And I said, are you tired of me reading chapter number 2 of The Purpose Driven Life? And so then that's when I just read the newspaper. But again, they had a trach in him. And they came to me and they said, well, he's been on it long enough and we can't get him off of it. So he's probably going to be on it the rest of his life. And I said, I'll tell you what, when you try to take it off, could you just make sure I'm here? And so when they tried to take it out, I would sing to him, be still and know he is Lord. And so for the whole 30 minutes, I would just sing that to him. And so he would pass it. And I think one time they tried to do it when I wasn't around and they were like, well, he failed it. And I'm like, I requested that you all not do it unless I'm here. And so then I did it again. I sung the song. They said he passed the second time. So now he doesn't have a trach. But also he was like getting dialysis. And so I remember they had came in when they had switched him to another hospital and they had said to me, well, he's been on this dialysis for so long, he'll be on it for the rest of his life. But before they switched him hospital, I had a vision that his urine was yellow. And I remember calling my sister and I'm like, I know I had a vision that his urine was yellow. And it was brown by the time they moved him. And so she said, well, then you believe what God showed you. And so it was still like a couple of weeks. And so I started getting water. Like I said, I don't have a medical degree. I don't have anything. So I'm like, I know your kidneys need water. So I would go give him water. And I think within 2 weeks, they turned yellow. And the doctor walked in the room and his urine was yellow. And also, when I took him home, he was a vegetable. All he could do was like look at the ceiling. And at one point, we were going to put him in a nursing home. But when I went in there, the walls were all white and they had like 9 people in there and they always staring at the ceiling and there was no simulation. And I was just like, this is not going to work. Mm-hmm. So I was like, he's got to come home with me. I don't have any training, but they literally had a room full of people just leaning at the ceiling. I was like, there's nothing in here. So when I took him home, I have an oldest son and he's 6'4", 6'5". Yeah. And so he would kind of help me some. And so what we did was I started working with him on walking. And then he started walking. I didn't kind of do the same thing as her. With him, I did my trek exercises that we did for track where you got to lift your legs like a horse. And because again, they didn't expect him to ever walk. They didn't expect him to talk. And I had literally just graduated college and I had taken diction and voice lessons. And I just said, you know what? Maybe God meant for me to take diction and voice lesson for him. And so I started using the techniques that I learned in class on him and he started talking. Wow. And so now I've got to admit that there became a stop point because his family kept attacking me because they wanted to take over. And I'm like, I'm not taking over. This is all God. This is not anything. This is not, I don't know the whole story. All I know is at that point, I was like, okay, I can't tend to him and do this too. So the progress started leveling off. But up until that point, the insurance company kept getting upset because they were like, the doctors give you whatever you ask for. But the doctors couldn't understand why he was getting better. He should have been a zombie and remained a zombie. And so for them, it's like fascination. Like, I have no medical degree. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not anything. Why is this man getting better? That literally for months laid in the bed staring at a ceiling. So again, that thread weaving to what God is doing. And so, I don't always understand why he uses our hands, our feet, our voices. And then other times he miraculously does it. But all I know is the thread. I can see it just weaving through there, and it's his hands. And that's it.
You didn't tell us about her going to high school.
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little bit more about Carrie.
Well,
So you just got her to like 4 months or something.
oh, yeah. Well, when she went to high school, that was kind of like a fight because, again, the labels. And so then the biggest thing is I just started working with her, and she's taken some college courses, and that's kind of like where she is now. Again, when I go back and I go with my 3 kids, we have a tendency, do we believe God or do we believe the report? And where's the story where they come back with a negative report and then they say we choose to believe God over the report?
Right.
And so my kids have a tendency to believe the report. And that's kind of where we're struggling with her right now. Because my middle son, when he went to college, he believed the report of high school. I can't. So he dropped out. Well, now he's back because I kept telling him, and with Christ, we could do anything. So now he's back making all A's and he's, studying to be an accountant. And then the other one, he helps companies make like millions of dollars. And so, and he knocked his confidence for a while. Now his confidence is slowly coming back. But he was to the point where he like outsold Kentucky, Ohio, the whole entire state of Ohio at 18 years old in sales. But this also was a kid that I remember when I told Sylvia one time they had came and they were taking a medicine. And I was like, no. I want him to stay because I want his spirit to hear. And then I remember as he got older, he used to, I don't always understand. And so a lot of this is on a big learning curve. But I remember when he was little, one day we were driving down River Road and he said, Mom, it's going to flood. And I'm like, no. That's just the name of the street. Is river is in the name, but it's not going to flood. The next day, the road flooded. And so then I remember one time he was dancing around the house and he was saying, we're going to be out of school next week. I'm like, no, you're just going to be out a day. He's like, nope, we're going to be out all week. The big old snowstorm of 1994, he would do that all the time. He would say stuff that was just like, I remember one time I was disciplining him because he kept running through and he did something. And so I was fussing at him and he looked at me and he says, Mom, you worry too much. And he was only 3. And I was just like, okay, you all right. I'm upset over, I think one time he flushed the soap down the toilet. So every time I saw him, I would fuss at him. And he looked at me when I was giving him a bath that night and he says, you know what, you really need to get over it.
But I want to tell that time when I came to her house. Now, little Willie, that's your brother, oldest brother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was just holding on to the coffee table and walking around the coffee table. And I was teaching and I was, sharing and teaching. And so one of her sisters came in because they were watching kids in the other room and wanted to come get little Willie. And so Tracy said this, oh, don't take him. He's hearing this. He's hearing this in his spirit. And one of these days he'll be able to say it and talk about it. And he won't even remember how it came. So, I want him to hear every bit of it. I'm telling you, now this is the kind of faith that she has. And it's the truth. It's kind of been natural for you because God has given her the faith every time. Really, he has. And another thing that she always said, she always took her to the doctor, and she didn't make them wrong. If they she didn't make them wrong. Like, I bet know better than you, she would just say, no, I just serve God and he's got the final word. The doctor doesn't. But she wasn't making them wrong. A lot of faith people automatically make the doctors wrong, because they're not in the same kind of faith. I love that about her. She didn't do that, gave them their place, but God has the final word. And I always love the way she said that Carrie, and you said it too. You said, Carrie, every time they put labels on her, and she would take the labels off like a winter coat. She always said that to me. I said, Tracy, don't ever come over here. I don't want you to even talk like me, because I want you to, I love the way you say everything. It's just so precious and so great. I mean, I do. I think it's just great. Now, Carrie, how old are you now?
27.
27? My goodness. And you graduated from high school. Now you're taking college courses. My goodness. Now, the way I understand it, when she was first born, she couldn't even suck.
No.
She had no muscle control at all. She was just limp, just nothing. And of course, that's what they labeled her. She's never going to be better, you see. And I'm telling you that, and so, but Tracy really has that gift of healing. She has it. So she just appears and people get healed. That's the truth. It's not that she's going to lay hand, like propagating, I've got this, this healing, gift. It's just the truth. And so her love is to help little children that are tell about that.
Like foster care.
Foster
children.
care.
I worked temporarily with foster care kids and I loved it. And I remember people kept telling me don't go because they're so difficult. These kids are beyond help. And I remember laying there at night thinking, okay, God, again, this is on you. And I remember when I went, we just saw so much transformation with their life. And there was 2 little boys, and I have to be careful because of the HIPAA. There was, all I could say is there was a lot of transformation. I have to, because of HIPAA, I have to really be careful of a lot of what I saw. But we saw, in fact, my director told me all the time, he says, this is your calling, because we would just see their lives transformed all the time. But I knew it was God, because at one point I remember when she was little and something happened to her and I was praying about it and it came to me, you tell her that where treasure is buried, it remains there forever, whether it's discovered or not. And so that's what I kind of use even with my clients. Even no matter what life does to you, no matter how many hits, the light that God gave you that you were born with is still there. And that's my job. Yes.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
That's pretty much it.
So wonderful, though, Tracy.
Yes.
I love the way what you first said in the beginning. You said it wasn't you, but how did you say it?
He broke me into trust.
He broke me into trust. Broke me into trust. Isn't it a great way to say that?
He broke me into faith. I wrote it down.
Well,
Same thing.
For me, the thing about faith was, I don't even know if I had it the size of a mustard seed. So when he said that comment about a mustard seed, I was just like, wow, that is really true, because so much of when people are sick, we think that the faith has to be giant. And in fact, it's usually the opposite. It has to be that little mustard seed so that you're out of the way. And he just, to me, sometimes I think God likes showing off.
Well, he does.
Yeah.
He does.
Hey, Tracy.
In our lives and through us, what God is doing. But we need to really rejoice about our name is written down in the.
Right. Kelly has been saying that about faith, that we just need a little mustard seed of faith. Because we always think, well, faith evolves in us, though, because we start understanding God's ways. And we move from little children's faith to young man's faith to fatherhood faith. So we do. Okay, but it's the faithfulness of God. I mean, faith actually, it says, is one of the gifts of the Spirit. but what our theologian said is being faithfulness. So we're depending on his faithfulness to have faith in us. I like to say it like this: I trust him. And so he's the faither out through me. And I don't even come up with it. Really. That's exactly how she's saying it. It's like she's coming. So he gets all the glory,
Yes.
you know, and he wants to show off because he wants people to experience his glory, you see. So I believe it that way, that we just trust the Lord. And then he is the faither out through us. So we live by the faith of the Son of God, you see. So it's hardly us at all, maybe a little mustard seed, just like Kelly says. And then God overshadows that and really brings forth great things. I mean, did Abraham know what he was doing?
Right.
No. I think most of the people had no idea what they were doing, and they found out later, oh my gosh, that was faith. That was God's faith in me. And that's her. That's you. You know.
I got a question for you, Tracy. So, you know, you got the asthma situation with your son and all that, and she comes along, have it, then your husband. I mean, it was one of these things that people just say, how much more is going to happen to you? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just like, because it seemed like you'd get all these doubts that would come in and challenge your faith, but God would just see you through it every time.
Yeah, I was going to say the only time that I wrote that wave was the first one, was Will. By the time she came along, it was just more of, okay, God, me and you. And by the time the husband came along, it was me and you. It was no more of that up and down roller coaster. Yeah.
It was fixed.
Yeah.
It was fixed in you. And you're just not going to take it.
That's right.
You're not going to take it.
I do remember they sent him to, at the time, Kendrick was a place where you couldn't stay in the hospital anymore, but you weren't going to be well enough to go to the nursing home. So they sent you there to die. And they didn't really tell me that. So when he went there and I found out what it was, I remember telling the CEO, I said, he's going to die one day, but he's not dying in here. Because they say when you check in, you don't check out. And I said, he's not dying in here. And I knew that I was speaking the word of God because I had no power. The insurance did.
Wow.
And I remember the insurance don't have power over God.
That's right.
And so I just thought, I don't know how it's going to happen. But, you know, and I remember the day they transferred him out, the CEO came down and he just said, we're going to miss you. Because I was just, whatever they said, I was like, I'm not fighting you all. You can say whatever you want, do whatever you want. You know, the nurses would come in, I'd be pleasant with them. The doctors, I'm like, I'm not fighting you all. You know, the simple fact is he will not die here. But you all can fight, but I'm not going to fight.
You were just believing. You weren't fighting, you were believing.
You were just saying, too bad for what, you know, this is it. This is what's going to happen. And that's how confident faith is. It really is, where you just, no, you're not taking anything else. And God gives you that. So he's given you the gift of what most people would be so discouraged and, you know, they think, well, God can't even love me because I have one thing after another. I'm hit all the time. But through it all, it grew you up in faith. So
That's just awesome.
it is awesome. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
We heard the results of Carrie and your first son. But what about your husband? I mean, is he well today? Or?
Oh, he is in an assisted living facility.
Okay.
But the doctors do call him a miracle because whenever I come in, they're just like, because the very fact that he's alive, he should have never survived the system shutdown. When I say shut down, I mean everything went down. And I remember working his legs when he was, because they were cut off all the circulation to the blood to his arms and his legs. And they were talking about maybe he possibly would have to lose them because they had to save his heart. And I remember just going in, working his legs so that the blood could circulate just because they had shut it down. But I knew if I moved them, that blood would still kind of flow there. And they didn't mind that I did it. They said, you know, good for you. We're glad you're kind of like a little aware of what to do. And like I said, I remember when I said that he would walk again, and I remember the doctors looking at me like I was crazy. And like I said, the only thing is once his family started coming in, then I was like, I can't do both. And that's where the journey is so unfamiliar. It's not always familiar to me. But I will say this, like when I get clients, sometimes they come in with issues I just have no idea that people go through things on that horrific nature. And I'll pray about it, and God will give me something that will give them a breakthrough. I had one where I was driving down the road, and I mean, even with her, when she didn't know her vows, I was laying on the bed, and God gave me, well, this is what you tell her. And then I went to school, and the teacher said, well, I'll just use it for everybody. I didn't tell her that it came from God, but I'm like, and you know, all the time when I get frustrated, he kind of says, okay, here, because like one of the things that I would tell people, like when they want to fight with their kids, and I would tell them, okay, nobody wants fruit from a dirty plate. And I said, you know, if you go down to your heater radiator thing in the basement, it's pretty dusty. And I said, if you put a plate under there, it's just going to be filthy. You could take clean fruit on there and put it on that plate. And if you serve it to somebody, they're just going to see the plate. And so when you deliver how you say to people, watch how you say it, because they don't hear the meaning of what you say. They're looking at the plate. And so God just gives me all kind of things to say when I'm, so yeah.
Like parables all the time. All the time.
I have a director that she's like, but I'm like, I literally have people that they're in situations that are so bad, and I would give them a parable, and I would see their lives transform. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with the fact that I have people that their family is torn apart, and now they're
Healed.
yeah, they're going out to, you know, they don't want therapy because they're going out and shopping. You know, what do I do with that? But
Tell them about your school now.
oh, that's a hot mess. So that requires a lot of prayer, because there's a lot of fighting over one
Well, tell them where you are.
at Louisville Seminary. Yeah,
At where?
Louisville Seminary. And there's a lot of.
That's
Which is at
not
the
the
press.
Presbyterian seminary.
It's
Oh, it's
second.
It is a Presbyterian one,
Okay.
right?
Imagine that.
And she'll call me and say, let's just talk, because she's got nobody there that she can talk Christian with. Nobody.
So you're currently in school.
Mhm.
Okay.
Now, why are you doing that?
I love working with the broken. I love seeing God turn people's lives around. People I think are hopeless, I just absolutely love seeing God turn their lives around. Because I literally have clients come to me that say they feel like junk, or they feel like they are so broken, there is nothing under this sun. And I'm like, oh my God, God can do. And I just love seeing him, like even with the foster care kids, I love it. I love seeing, you know, I just think about the different things God gives me to say to people, because sometimes I'm like, I don't even know where some of the stuff that I say to people come from, but it resonates with them because I'm praying about them constantly. And I have seen majority of my clients have turned their lives around, and some of them, their lives are, if you ever read it in a book, you'd be like, there is no way under the sun this person like would ever turn around. And I have seen it time and time.
Hallelujah.
You're a Christian counselor, or what is your clients? What are you?
We do get to pray with them, but no, the clients are.
And you're a counselor?
Yeah, just a counselor.
Okay.
Yeah. And even though it's supposed to be a Christian institution, well, that's a loose word for that.
Sure is.
But we can pray with them, which is one of the reasons I liked it. But I pray for my clients all the time. But I've seen lives where in the human realm, there would be no hope for them. But I'm like, I love seeing God just do his work. And I would say the majority of them, because I guess even with addiction, and I got to be careful because of HIPAA. Sometimes I get people, and this is even, I guess I can say this because I get people outside of the therapy, and so they don't mind me telling theirs, where everybody around them is addicted. And I've seen God turn their lives around. And I've seen when he turns one around, it's like a big chain reaction where another one will come with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I love working with the broken. Love it, love it, love it. Because I don't believe that in God's eyes, there are no broken. Because the moment he told me with her that once treasure is buried, now when I go see a client, my first thing I think is, where's that light? Where's that light of God that's in you? Whether you believe in God or not, he believes in you. And where is it? And that's what I go for.
Wow.
And that's what I pull on whenever I'm working with
Do you
them.
tell them that?
Some I can, some yeah. Because I get Christian people that the church can break you too. So I get some Christians that come up in there and yeah.
The worst.
Mm-hmm. Church can be a steamroller.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Could you explain that a little bit more?
Oh, not as good as somebody like Sylvia.
No.
I think she's just saying that the church can steamroll people in the fact that, like, if they're super religious, if they're law, if they're they're not giving them life, and so that piles up, and people can get 10, 20 years into that, and be completely lost, completely broken, but they're part of a church. They call themselves Christians.
Mm-hmm. And when the church breaks you, where do you go?
Exactly.
Well, right.
Mm-hmm.
Who's safe?
Mm-hmm.
We experienced that when we moved here. We had gotten involved in pretty much a cult, and one night something happened, and we just moved here to Louisville. Knew nobody. We remember getting in a car and just driving, and it was raining, and I was crying. It was a wonder I didn't even have to see out the windshield between my tears and the rain. And it dawned on me, I had nobody that I could call, nobody I could go to.
Yeah, the church can really be yeah. So that's pretty much it.
So great.
Yeah,
That's so great.
Something's really strange happened today that goes along with everything that we've just been talking about dealing with the broken. I belong to a professional women's group, and I'm head of the membership. And I got a call saying, you need to call this person. She's interested in becoming a member. And so I called. This lady answers the phone. And I said, did you talk to somebody recently about becoming a member of this organization? She said, I've talked with so many people because I'm in so much need. And like my ears picked up. I knew immediately God was doing something. And the longer she talk about broken, and there was no way I thought, what have you done here, Lord? Why? How did this happen that this person called her and she was interested in this organization, and then they had me call her? Of all the people that could have, there are many chapters within Louisville, and our chapter was the one that was called. I talked with her for over an hour, and she is so broken. She's alone, she's depressed, she's dying of kidney and liver failure. Her first husband tried to kill her, and her second husband died of a stroke on her birthday, and she's been raped by people that she thought she could trust, and it went on and on and on, and I'm just listening, and I'm listening, and I'm listening, and I said, I prayed with her at the end, and we exchanged addresses and telephone numbers, and we're gonna, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm like, how does, and later I found out that when I was texting her, this other person's name kept coming up on my text. And so I contacted the other person and I said, what's going on here? This is the number that's in the directory for you. And she said, that's the wrong number.
Hmm.
And so anybody who would have called to talk with this other person would have gotten, her name is Brittany, would have gotten Brittany. But I was the one.
Well, the thing of it is, there's a lot of counselors, but there's no comparison to a counselor or a person that is filled with the Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is the one counseling the person. You see, sometimes we have so much know-how that we go by what we think instead of really hearing what the person really needs. And it's good. I always say it's good not to know. I like exactly what Tracy is saying. It's good. I don't know how to counsel. I don't know how to have a ministry. I don't know how to do any of it. I knew nothing. And the whole thing has to be God when it's that way. And a lot of times people that are so educated, they've got so many cliches and so many patterns that they go by, you see, and they hone you into a pattern. Well, and they put a label on you. You're this, this is your problem. And then you're stuck with that and believing that you just have to live with the rest of your life. So without this kind of faith, that we don't have to take any of that. And I love the way she doesn't make the doctors wrong, but they're not the final word. That's the point. That's the point. Because a lot of faith people, they think, well, the doctors don't know and we're the ones that know, and they get kind of high-minded about it, you see. We don't have to be that way either, you see. We don't. And it's humility, really, that wins. Love and humility is what wins, you see. And so, I mean, and God has gifted every one of us. Every one of us have special gifts. We do. And that's her special gift.
I think it takes the emotion. The emotion is out of you, and it's just faith.
It is.
It's not like you get angry if they come in and say, and you challenge them. And
yeah, right.
It's just like, hey, you're being kind to them.
Mm-hmm.
I hear what you're saying, and they're just telling you what they think they know.
Well, it's
But you've got a higher.
It's two different levels of understanding.
That's exactly right.
It's how the world sees it, and how they've been trained to see it, and they're doing the best they can. Right. So you have to give them that. I always build them up, you see. Right. And then, but we not just a higher power. I hate that because we know who it is. Right. It's really the Lord. The Lord is our higher power, and He has the final word. And you know what? He loves it when we will not take it. When other people say this, and I can, remember, and I've always not liked counseling for that reason, because of the labels. And I think you get people stuck on those labels, and they get stuck and they believe it themselves.
The coats.
And they do. Mm-hmm. And you see, and it's unbelief. It's really, and so I say, I don't want to be analyzed that way, So, I don't even like the different 4 personality types. You know why? Because you don't know what kind of personality the Lord's going to come out of you be. Maybe a combination of any one of them at any time. Because you're waiting on the Spirit. I mean, it's the Spirit's life out through us, really. It's the Holy Spirit, and God He'll be calm, He'll be boisterous, He'll be every which way. So you can never label yourself I'm a certain way.
I bet you God gives you a unique way with every situation.
He does.
He does.
Now, I will say this.
Huh?
Why?
Because that's what they need.
Because He's creative.
Well, He knows what they need.
And guess what? Did Jesus act that way? Jesus did the same thing.
Yeah.
Everything He did. He didn't put mud on anybody else's eye but that one guy. Mm-hmm. He did not make a religion out of a how-to religion. He did not. We've done all that. This flowing in the Spirit and meeting every challenge by the Spirit, and, just living in total faith. I mean, she says, I have no degrees on that, she's in college now. Tell them why you went to the seminary. Why?
It was just basically the foster care kids. But I will admit that when they teach the methods, a lot of time when I go write my notes, I did tell the director, I said, I do struggle because how do you put that God helped you?
Yeah, right. God did.
What insurance company is going to pay for when you put that in your notes? But she told me it was okay. She said that, that we sit with the clients and let God sit with them with what they're going through. And, she's working with us on how do you put that in the notes? Because I'm like, that's what I do.
Yeah, right.
I sit with them and I say, okay, God, I'm sitting, but I know you're the one that's going to meet the needs. So I'm sitting here but you are going to, but you have to turn in the notes as part of the program.
Mm-hmm.
But I just put what we say. But we're supposed to be doing techniques, and I don't have any.
There's no techniques.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
what I
have.
love.
Well, it's staying in the emptiness, saying, I've got
it is.
nothing. God
You
has
have
me.
nothing. You know nothing. You're
Right.
not. Dad used to say when he used to work, Mom, I got somebody I want you to counsel with. I said, well, why don't you counsel with them? Oh, I can't. I don't have the right words. I said, Dad, you don't get it. I don't know. I don't know how to counsel. I don't have any words. I don't know how to do it. I want to be that way. And it's in you. Now he's the same way. See, when you really know this emptiness, then you can know the fullness of God. When you know this emptiness, and God reduces us to emptiness, He has to do it. And He does it. We can say, well, I'm surrendering all, but we're not.
Yeah.
He has to get us to it. He has to take us there. He has to cause us to surrender. Because, that's all, just trying to be good again.
Yeah, because I got to admit, when it comes to my own healing, I don't see the same thing.
When,
On other people, I see this. There is what's impossible with man is possible with God. I see it, but when it comes to me, my health is like just a little tuk. But I realize that's because it's all God, and sometimes with me, I'm probably still standing in the way. Whereas it comes to other people, I'm acting more as an intercessor.
well, can I say this? Okay, one time I went with some friends of ours to Atlanta. We went to the TBN studio. We were going to see somebody, which we weren't impressed. But anyway.
Won't name names.
But there was after that, then there was a black lady that came in, and her hands were crippled like this. She had arthritis, and her hands were crippled. And her testimony was this. I bet they didn't put this on. I bet you they didn't. She said, "This is my testimony. No, I didn't get healed. But every person I pray for gets healed. Everyone gets healed." Now that's scripture. We bear about in our bodies the dying of the Lord Jesus, that the life of Christ might be manifested. Death will work in us, but life works in others. That's intercession. And she knows that. You see? So sometimes you don't get healed. And everybody else does. I mean, think about Jesus. They said, you can do this for everybody else. Get off the cross. I mean, come on.
Yeah, really.
Be for yourself a minute here. No.
One of my favorite depictions of the season 3 of The Chosen was right after Jesus had told the disciples that he was sending them out, and they were kind of in shock. And little James comes out to Jesus, and he says, I'm not healed, and yet you're telling me I have to go out and pray for other people to be healed? What is that going to mean? And Jesus says, well, how much more impressive will it be when they see that you are walking with a limp and they're free?
That's right. That is right. That's the point. That really is the point.
So good.
And so, and how many times do you say to people that they're just so bound up in love, blah, 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 blah? You know, if you go do something for somebody else, it's going to help you. We used to say that to Kelly all the time, didn't we? Now he's really coming out of his depression. He was so depressed. He would go to Cuba with us and others, and he was a total different person. He'd come out of himself. So, and we just, we just believed that, it's not taking it. We're not taking it. This is not the final word about these people and the people. And if they need to go get worse, then I'll pray get worse. Sometimes it takes that for people to come through.
Yeah, I forgot because she did actually got worse before she got better.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was totally not. I mean, once God drops something in your spirit that a solution, it's over.
Yes.
But the world will flip the other way. It will go on fire.
Yes.
But once it's in your spirit, it's like, I don't care. It can burn because I know.
Because the devil doesn't give up easy and he has to fight it. And so we don't care. You just don't care what it looks like, what it feels like. You don't care anymore. After all these years of, our son Dave right here, now he has his own ministry, and it's just brought him alive more and more and more and more.
He's waving.
Is he waving? Yeah. There's my Dave. Yeah. All these years, lots of ups and downs all over the place. And, after a while, I don't care what it looks like. Don't care. Don't care. Oh, that again? Okay. No, because you've already got him home in the spirit. Home is in the spirit. We know that, and he had a taste of it when he went in the jail and got anointed. And he needs to give his testimony about that. That's really a great testimony. God does the oddest things. He's just always up to something. And he and I had a word of faith that my book, The Treasures of Darkness, would be in all the jails. That's what we wanted.
Yeah.
And we had a word of faith.
2 weeks before.
Later, the sheriff ended up in our front door, knocking on the door, arresting him, putting him in jail.
Oh my goodness.
And guess what? I got to send my books over and over with the Bible to jail. And then they got dispersed everywhere. They did.
Really?
Yes.
All over the country. All over the country.
No. But
Let's saying something.
Okay, let me just say this. The first thing is, we paid his fine because he was without a job, behind on child support. That's what it was. And you get put in jail. You're behind on child support. Yeah. So we could have paid it. Do we pay it? Not, and Dad and I both said no. And so David was asking, that could have been a possibility. And so we said, no, Dave, we're not. The very first thing he said, well, then God means me to be here. Oh. That set the course right there. God means me to be there. And when he left, the jailer said, you've taken this hellhole and turned it into heaven. It's the truth. So where does God show up? In the worst places, in the most broken people, in the least.
He loves to show off, just like Tracy said.
Like he wants to show off.
Then it's him.
Yes. Then
Yeah.
And you know what? You will say, I don't even know how I got here. I don't even know how I know that what I know. I cannot put my finger on what I ever did right to get me here. I didn't.
I did everything wrong.
We did everything wrong. And God got us here.
That's it.
It's just amazing.
It's all perfect.
It is, Dave. I used to say that to a Baptist guy that was in the seminary, Southern Seminary, years ago. Then everything already is perfect. Even if everything goes wrong, it's still God's perfection for you. And so And they would say, oh, you can't say that. That is no. I said, let me ask you something. When you get to heaven and look back, do you think you'll say everything was perfect? Yeah, probably I would. And I said, why can't you do it now?
Absolutely.
It's just the difference of where your feet are standing.
Mhm.
Still choose to see it a certain way.
That's right.
That's right.
How are you going to see it?
I want to tell you, when Tracy was giving her testimony, I was muted and off screen, but I was crying the whole time. And I've heard her testimony before, but every time I hear it, it reaches
Places.
my heart. It grabs me because the spirit in me is just confirming what I already know. You know, she was talking about the faith, you know, the faith of a mustard seed. Well, you know what? Those mountains moved in front of her from that little bit of faith that she had for her family and for the people that she's talking to now. Those mountains moved. So, confirmation.
It just takes a mustard seed to move a mountain,
That's right.
to change the world, like Brian said.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, one of his doctors still call him his miracle patient because he's like, there's no explanation why he should be. Really, like I said, when he coded, he should be dead.
Yeah, right.
And especially when they took all the blood and quit circulating it to his limbs, he
And-
shouldn't even have limbs.
And didn't your in-laws say, Tracy, you and the doctors, they said, you can't do this yourself. I mean, you're not even, he's a big man and you can't do this. And you said, well, we'll see how God can do it. And she did it. So every challenge in life is meant to go in this direction. It's meant to go in this direction, this kind of direction. You know, to show God, to show off God. I mean, she's right. God loves to show off.
Well, you know that doctor that was saying, you know, he's a miracle patient. What's going on in that doctor's mind to even say that?
That's
There's
right.
ticking going on there that he's wondering himself. And that's what God does, is he'll show you and show other people, because it's never for one person. He'll show these people and then it gets them thinking and getting them, the clock starts ticking in their head, you know, where you know, they'll start looking for an answer, and God's the answer. So by him saying he's a miracle patient, you know that doctor is thinking and wanting to know what's really going on.